Okay, starting point. Why do I think that XDR is such a good fit for customers? Well, there seems to be, and this is just my view on the UK at least. I'd imagine it's very similar, in the US and across the rest of Europe, rest of the world potentially. There seems to be this massive kind of misconception that so many organizations have their own internal SecOps teams, they have their own SecOps platforms, they're, full mature SIEM deployments, and that's just not the case. It's very, very common, and I have these conversations pretty much at least once a week, that IT teams are overworked, overstretched. They don't just look after the security solutions, they look after the wireless environment, the wired infrastructure, the firewalls, email, absolutely everything. And it means that they can't effectively manage, monitor, and maintain those security solutions. So the analogy I normally use is like taking a McLaren and keeping it in the box parts on your driveway, where actually what you want to do is you want to correlate all the events from these different solutions and you want tangible results from it. So you want to take those component parts and turn it into the track day kind of dream vehicle, okay? So that's where XDR comes into play. Now, to do this, the first thing I want to talk about is the integration side of things. So across a kind of true zero trust architecture, every organization is going to have multiple different security solutions within that environment, and that rightly so. Now, the problem we have is that those solutions don't talk to each other, they don't correlate incidents. So if you've got a lean team, you're having to dive into every single point product, understand what those alerts are telling you, and then try and map everything together, and it's just not practical. So we need that correlation platform, which is what XDR does. But historically, vendors have been quite kind of tight without, if you're not looking at a SIEM, if you look at an XDR solution, vendors have been quite kind of tight on the different third parties that they'll integrate with. Now, XDR has a very different approach to that, Cisco's XDR. They want to work very nicely with pretty much everybody, and they want to take as much data from as many different sources as possible, which if you're looking at a SIEM, if you want to ingest data from everywhere, it can get quite expensive. So XDR does it slightly differently. So I'm going to kind of work around the image we've got here. I'm going to start at the top right, which is the public cloud environment. This essentially the back end of XDR is built on the old Secure Cloud Analytics. It's now known as XDR Analytics, but that's going to take API integrations from your CSP platform, so Azure, AWS, GCP. We're going to take in all those logs from those different VNets and VPCs and understand the behavioral side of the different assets that you've got within that environment. Obviously, because if we understand normal behavior, it can then flag on anomalous behavior. Then moving around the image, as we can see, we got the on-premise network. So much like we do with the CSP platforms, your on-premise environment, we want to take as much telemetry as we can from there as well. So we've got on-premise sensors that we can deploy either through telemetry brokers or OVAs, where what we want to do is we want to pull in all that kind of on-premise data. So all your NetFlow traffic, which, in a SIEM solution can be quite noisy. XDR will take all of that NetFlow data in. If it's not relevant to a security incident, it will pass it and it will get rid of it. Because it's, at the end of the day, XDR isn't a log storage platform. It's about analyzing the security relevant detail. Moving around, campus and branch, we can take in all the logs from your Catalyst environment, from your Meraki environment, or the Catalyst cloud. Firewall side of things. Yes, as you'd expect, it has very tight integrations with the Cisco Secure Firewall side of things, but we can also take them in from Checkpoint, Palo, Fortinet. Doesn't really matter what firewalls you've got deployed, we can take all the flow logs in from those. Moving around, the remote worker side of things. As I've mentioned before and in other videos, Cisco have a secure client. So it's a single client to deploy across your environment that's modular. So one of those modules is the network visibility module, which looks at all the different processes that are running on your endpoint. We obviously then, that information is very kind of relevant security incidents. We can feed all that into XDR, correlate it with threat intelligence sources. As you'd expect, Cisco, we've got Talos, we can ingest it, that will be ingested into XDR, and that will be the kind of primary threat intelligence source. But we can also take in third-party sources as well, open source sources of that threat intelligence. So we've got PulseDive, VirusTotal. There's a huge list of different integrations. You give it a Google, it's a massive, massive list of threat intelligence sources. And like I mentioned before, integrations is key. So other third-party vendors, really good integrations. We can take all of their, the relevant security telemetry from the likes of Darktrace, 𝗧𝗛𝗛𝗧, Crowdstrike, SentinelOne, Trend Micro, Microsoft. It's a massive, massive list. And it makes sure that you're going to make the most out of that kind of multi-vendor security deployment. Now, before I jump into the dashboard and show you really kind of quickly at a high level where it will kind of bring value to your organization, I think this is really important to kind of get across. The aim of XDR is to help you prioritize the incidents that you need to respond to within your organization. So the platform itself will factor a priority score for you. So you go into work on a Monday morning, or you may be working 24/7, 365. When you log into the platform, you want to know where you need to prioritize your efforts. So within XDR, you give your assets a different priority score, 0 to 10, okay? You then have a detection risk. So that detection risk is based off multiple factors it's predominantly kind of mapped around MITRE TTP, so the financial risk, the number of MITRE TTPs that an incident is aligned to as well, and the source severity of where we're seeing these incidents come in from. You take the asset value and that detection risk. The detection risk, by the way, is 0 to 100. You take those two factors, multiply them together. That's going to give you a priority score of 0 to 100. So as we jump into the demo now, I'm going to show you where that comes into effect. Okay, so this is just a really kind of quick high-level introduction to XDR. I want to start off by showing the MITRE coverage map. So this will tell you essentially your strength against the different MITRE TTPs with the solutions that you've got deployed within your environment. It gives you a lovely insight into the adversary landscape out there, so you can see different adversaries. You can map this to what's affecting your specific industry and your geographical region as well. So as you can see here, I've done a bit of a filter. I've gone for education in the UK, but you can, depending on where you are, obviously you can kind of alter those filters. This is where I kind of want to focus the efforts. It's on the incidents tab, because that's where you're going to be most interested. And as you can see there, we've got that priority score that I mentioned earlier. So top of the list, I've got 1,000. I can jump into any one of these incidents and it will bring me out a kind of high level incident overview. It will show me the date timestamp of when it's been seen. It will give me that priority score, a breakdown of the detection risk and the asset value, and a summary of what we've seen and why, and a full description as well. So if I jump into incident details, this is where it's designed to take that level 1 NOC analyst, turn them into a level 1 SOC analyst, essentially. It gives us a lovely correlation of all the different observables, not necessarily IOCs, but the observables that have been seen within that incident. So if you want to understand the different hosts, the different devices, how they've communicated with each other, what ports, what IP addresses, what devices, what destination URLs, this is where it will show you. Detection side of things, it shows you all the interesting events, and the response is where you'll start working through. And this is where it's designed to give your kind of admins a walkthrough of how to confirm that incident, contain it, and then you walk through the stages for eradication and recovery. Okay. Once you're working through that, it has an active work log, so everything that's tracked, who's been doing what as part of that incident response, which is really quite helpful because it's not a manual process. And then it will put everything into an overall report for you. So you don't have to spend loads of time pulling in different kind of data from different platforms.